the groundswell in SAP environment in North America and globally. SAP has called for the end of support for SAP ECC for 2027, while also end of life for 2030. But what really does that mean for end users? Joining us today is Chris from EPI-USE Services for AWS. Chris, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Chris, what is your role at EPI-USE?
So I'm a senior executive at EPI-USE Services for AWS, and I really focus on SAP migrations to the cloud and navigating the 2027 and 2030 deadlines that our clients are facing. And so I think really the big challenge, and there's sort of two main questions that we're addressing. We're taking a 25-year on-prem ECC client who's got to deal with cloud first and answer the cloud questions and deal with a core ERP upgrade. And putting all that together, you got to get this done by 2030. So frightening statistic, if you think 75% of cloud migrations fail, 80% of ERP implements fail, well, let's put those together and get it done in 5 years' time. So a massive challenge for our client base, and really providing them with a step-by-step way to navigate through all of that and end up, the other side in safe harbor and into the cloud.
But it's end of support. I've got 3 years, end of life, 5 years. Seriously, isn't that enough time? Typical migrations take about 2 years to migrate over to it, even sometimes less depending on the application.
Sure.
Don't I have enough time?
Well, it's a good question. If I was doing a like-for-like migration, and I was, common Turner phrase, a lift and shift into the cloud, perhaps it would be enough time. But I'm not doing that. I'm doing a major upgrade from ECC to S/4HANA, change of database, change of application, change of business applications, and the way that we deal with that as a business. So advisory, people management, all of the things that have to go with an S4 upgrade. And on top of that, I have a whole ton of ancillary applications that have to go with it. And I've never been in the cloud. I don't know how to manage the cloud. I don't know anything about cloud native applications. I've got older stuff. I've got newer stuff. Where to from here? Do I do the cloud native stuff first and then SAP? Do we do SAP now and then our cloud native stuff? How do we do that and not impact our business, and do that in a fashion that we navigate through this 2027 and 2030 deadline?
Are you talking about that? Why can't I just stand up SAP into the cloud, pump the data into it, and doesn't it just work? See, the biggest thing that I think people don't really understand is that all the other factors that come into play when you're dealing with SAP, you mentioned the business applications. Yeah. They're pointing to something, and now they've got to change that. They've Correct. Got to update that. Yeah. Why didn't SAP make this easy, that everything kind of worked the same in transition? Or
well, I think your introduction, we talked about a groundswell. So cloud technology is such now that we have AI. We can't ignore that. AI and the data models that are driving AI have to be set up in a uniform manner. How do we take 400,000 clients with their own customizations and their own environments, move that onto a new version of SAP that has AI built into the chassis of it, with all their data hanging all over the place and not clean core and customized business processes that don't fit to standard in the SAP world. So it's a complicated question. SAP, I think, are doing their best to give their clients, or well, at least allow their clients to leverage this technology moving forward. But to get you there, you've been 25 years on-prem, doing your own thing, customizing away, really without any guide rails that are going to get you where we need to get you in the next 5 years. So I don't think it's necessarily a vendor problem or an SAP problem. It is a general ecosphere challenge, for the environment.
Is one of the concerns that they might not have upgraded their SAP in all this time because they were on-prem? It's been running, it's been working. Why should I touch it?
Sure.
So now I haven't upgraded. Now I need to possibly upgrade on-prem in order to get to the cloud and migrate it. So now I have even less time because I have to upgrade and migrate in 3 years.
Correct. And you got clients out there on Enhancement Pack 6, they want to get to Enhancement Pack 8, then they want to move to S4. What is the deployment pattern? Is it going to be we call it greenfield, start again, brand new, take on all the brand new processes, lift up, a slice of your data into a greenfield, brand new environment, one option. Brownfield, which is the most common, is to take what you have, upgrade it in line, and move it into the cloud, or what we call bluefield or hybrid, where you've got some on-prem stuff and you've got some stuff going on in the cloud. It's quite common to carve out, say, payroll and HR and leave that on-prem, move the core ERP and S4 stuff, and then take HR and payroll later. So yes, and that's a complicated, and it's unique to each environment. And so what we hear from our clients, or what we see, out in the wild is, where do I start with this? It's big.
The chicken before the egg. I need to get to here, but I need to do this before that. Yeah. I need to understand.
Yeah.
I think it's overwhelming for a number of customers and clients in order to do it and analyze where they're going for. One of the other concerns that I see here, they haven't upgraded, and they're not going to the cloud anytime soon, or they're very concerned about it, is a skill set, right?
Oh, for sure.
They don't even know where to go. You just said it, like, what do I do first?
Yeah.
Lacking the skills to do it. It's not I don't say a bad thing, but it's worked. They had their on-prem people, they did it,
yes.
they maintained it, but now the skill sets to upgrade and get them to the cloud is one of the key components.
And massively overwhelming. So, one of the things, and those of us that live in cloud technology and AWS and understand and speak cloud, as it were, it seems pretty trivial. But if you've got an on-prem environment with an operations team, a bunch of programmers or a support team, business analysts, a whole environment that is driving your personal company's innovation on-prem, now we're going to move to the cloud. So the perception out there is, okay, well, we're just going to rent servers and hard drives from a different company, and we'll move. No, incorrect. Try again. We don't talk about servers and hard drives. We talk about workloads and data availability. We talk about switching services off and on at will. We're moving to OpEx. So the way that you fund this is going to change entirely.
Yep.
So that skill set discussion is a big one, because you're going to have a transformation in your internal IT department. But beyond that, you're going to have a transformation in the way that you approach your technology entirely. So along with, we've got, as we talked about, we've got the upgrade going on, right? So we're moving to S/4HANA, we're latest and greatest from SAP. On the other side, we've got all these applications that are now going to fall into cloud speak, or into this landscape that we know very little about. And so, like you say, the feedback in general is, where do we start? And in most cases, and certainly in our thinking at EPI-USE, is we start clients off with a pre-flight. So we say, what have you got? Let's take stock of what's going, what's staying, what direction do you want to go, and where do you want to end up when you're running S4 Rise? That journey, in terms of a pre-flight, that's typically a month, maybe a month and a half, where we're extracting out of the environment, what versions are you on, what are the ancillary technologies, what can go cloud native, what can be moved directly. Any person advising a client who's moving to the cloud who talks about lift and shift, well, if you have to get out of your data center and it's an emergency, I get that. But otherwise, you're not leveraging cloud technology appropriately, you're not understanding, and what's going to happen is that you go about doing that, your expense or overspend on technology is going to be massive.
More than your data center costs.
Big time.
Because you're building a data center in the cloud, and that's not what cloud is supposed to be.
Correct. And and it's insipid, right? Because you're moving from CapEx to OpEx. So I say, oh, this is monthly. It doesn't seem, oh, look at that over a year. Oh, wow.
Yep.
And so understanding that, architecting correctly for the ancillary technologies as they go to the cloud, understanding where you are with SAP. And a lot of not good things have happened in your SAP for 20 odd years, right? So we got to clean out all of that stuff, clean out the custom code, get back to fit to standard as far as is practical for the entity, and move them into the cloud. S4 Rise or S4 HANA Rise or SAP Rise, these are SAP managed instances. So your ops team is now going to be SAP. So we've got a combination of SAP running the ERP stuff, and then my team, or the entity's team, company's team, whomever it is going to manage everything else, including the spend, including innovating, including budgeting, including business analysis. What technologies are we going to use? And so that journey, when we say, well, a cloud migration, typically a couple of years, what's the problem? Well, let's start with 6 months of education before we even go anywhere near it. What is the spend going to look like? Because it's not immediately obvious. And you sat and say, okay, this is what it's costing me today. And often, they're sweating those assets, so they're older, and they don't care. It's on-prem. If it breaks, buy a new one. But we'll run it till it does break. So we say, oh, you're going to save a whole ton of money moving to the cloud. That's not necessarily true. In fact, in a lot of cases, it's a like for like. In other cases, it's more, and it's just going to be more, and that's just how it is. So understanding that, and for clients, I think what's super important is being able to walk into this eyes open and say, there's no unicorn and rainbow at the end of a cloud migration. It's tough, and we're going to upset your people. We're going to upset the lines of business. We're going to do our best to interrupt as little as possible. But the reality, this is a heavy lift for any client, and particularly an ERP customer, because they are heavily reliant on that technology. It is running their business. So doing that in a seamless way, having them through pre-flight, through education, through cost analysis, and all of the other disciplines that we bring to the table, you can then approach the thing and say, well, we want to be on by this day, it's going to cost this much. These are the resources that we're going to use, and this is the plan. And this is what the landing zone is going to look like. Now we can have at it. That's not a 2-year process. It just isn't.
Chris, I like how you said the lift and shift. It's not a solution here for SAP, because you're talking about end of support, end of life. That's it. Like, if you could lift and shift it, and I don't think it's really possible, because the back end of it is all the communication to all the business applications where they're living, and still the communication and the path to it. Can I just use another ERP solution instead of migrating, lift and shift and doing it?
Well, the answer in technology, is always you can do whatever you like. Yep. We have clients, so it's a good question. So there's sort of 3 flavors of this. The first is the ostrich algorithm, yep, which says, I'm going to build a support structure around old ECC, and I'm going to run it until the legs fall off it. And I don't care about being in step with SAP roadmap. I don't care about upgrading to S4. I'm going to stay where I am, build a moat around it, and look after it.
Well, what if something breaks, though? But I mean, people have been running mainframes for years, so
right? Don't want to touch it too much. But,
don't breathe. Don't go near it.
Yeah, well, but that's a flavor, and
yep,
and there are clients that choose to do that. The second flavor are ones that just really have said hell no.
Yep.
And we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and so we're throwing out SAP, we're throwing out all that, and we're going to go in a different direction. And then the third and most common category is, okay, we hear you. Joule in SAP and AI is the future. It makes complete sense. We understand. How do we get there? And what does our flavor look like when we're there that suits us? And there are options in that space. And we say, yes, okay, we understand, but you understand that you are embarking on a 3-4 year journey. And the reality is, and you're asking, 2 years, what's the problem? Well, there is a whole bunch of clients that need to move, and there is a limited resource set that can move them. And so the longer you push that deadline up against 2030, the less people there are going to be around that you trust to move this.
Around or available, right?
Yeah.
Because there's limited companies that have this skill set.
Oh, for sure.
And by the time you get somebody up to skills for it, you're already, we said 3 years, you're already, and then that's only understanding it. That doesn't have the skills of doing this and accomplishing it successfully.
Right.
You need somebody that understands that there's a critical nature of the business relying on SAP and this limited downtime, limited issues, because there are cost implications upon everything, even industry implications we're going to talk about, but go ahead.
No, sure. And I think when we talk about the skill set, it is a specialized skill set. So, here at EPI-USE, we're quite lucky. We're 40 years with SAP. Our AWS technology is born in the cloud, migrated plenty of customers across, understand what going across that river looks like in a standard non-SAP migration and a vanilla SAP migration, and more commonly, both together, and all of it at once. And so as we approach that 2030 deadline, bigger clients who are going to want to move, like we were discussing, I haven't started a pre-flight. I don't understand, how are we going to get there, what our particular roadmap is going to look like, and I haven't invested the time, money, resourcing, people, all of that to discover that. Well, you just pushed your journey out another 2 years.
Yep.
If you're going to do this responsibly. And the reality is, in an ERP solution, you have to do it responsibly. There's no throw it in the cloud, see what happens. You will shut the manufacturing plant down. You will shut the utility down. You will have a very large impact on, what's going on from a core or business core perspective. And so, again, we're back to this floating, let's call it 5 years timeline, where we've got to get on this journey. We know we've got to get on this journey. How do we start? Okay, there's guidance for that. This is the direction that we're going to go in. This is what our end goal and our landing zone is going to be. Okay, now we're going to have at it. The big challenge for business isn't so much the technical challenges we can fix, and by and large, we can do a pretty good job of that. The challenge that business sit with today is, what is the business case for this? I have to upgrade my ERP. I've got to go to S/4HANA. I've got to get out of the data center, my data center, and all my stuff. I don't even know what I'm going to do with all my stuff. So what, do I sell it? How do I deal with shutting down my data center? Sure, there's solutions for that. Buy it out, just destroy it for you, release it to you while you're moving into the cloud. But how do I, as a CIO, a CTO, how do I sit down with my CFO and my CEO and say to them, we got 5 years to upgrade our core ERP, and we need to move all of our applications into the cloud. It's going to change the way that finance run the business. It's going to change the way that we modernize and we treat technology. It's going to change the way that you interact with our core technology. So, SAP Finance on ECC doesn't look like that on S4. And look, there are answers to that, but the reality is it is that change. So, Mr. CFO, Mr. CEO, what's the business case for this? Why should I do it? And the answer, I think, is there's no silver bullet to this stuff, but the answer really is a hybrid answer in terms of the business case. And that hybrid answer is to say, one, there is a ground shift. Artificial intelligence is real. And to run that, you have to run it in the cloud. You cannot run AI in your private data center. You can connect to it, sure, but you can't run it. So we have to go to the cloud. It is the new industrial revolution, for sure. And it is going at a pace that if we do not keep up with it, the price, the time, and the effort to get up to speed with it, having sat out of that game for a period of time, is going to become insurmountably expensive. So marching as close as we can in lockstep with these developments, and with the cloud revolution, as we would call it, really presents a base business case for why we want to get started with this now. There are other more nuanced answers in terms of just an upgrade from ECC to S4. S4 offers a lot of shiny, new, and effective things, and effective way of doing things. So there's that slither that's important, and it's important for business to understand. And then the last bit is to say our people, and that we are continually investing in our people to leverage and make use of the technology that is available. Living in an on-prem bubble, not so good. Not good for the technology, certainly not good for the people who are looking after it. So that whole groundswell and move towards the cloud and upgrading ERP is in and of itself the business case, if you like.
Chris, I see a slight, I want to say, challenge here. What about industries that are not in the cloud, that are not there yet, haven't agreed upon it? And I'm talking about utilities, infrastructure that it's relied upon, government industries that are not using the cloud, have not adopted it, and now this forces them to adopt the cloud and move to the cloud at the same time? Are there ways that they can use it? I mean, the data security of traversing the cloud is huge for utilities, right?
Yeah.
So talking about them, there are some that have adopted, there's some that yet have fully adopted the cloud. Now I have to put my data there and bring it back. What do I do?
Well, so that's a complicated question with a multifaceted answer. But to say that regulated industries, you know, military, aerospace, you know, utilities, they come with their own set of problems in terms of legislative problems. We can't do this. The law just will not allow us to do this, as well as technical challenges, older systems, you know, all the things that go with that. What I would say is, and if we talk about cloud and we talk about this shared responsibility model and the management security, I would be willing to bet absolutely bottom dollar to say that an in the cloud solution is going to be considerably more secure than one that is being managed on-prem, just simply because of that model and enforcing best practices and well architected and all of the things that come with cloud technology. But it is perfectly fair to say that regulated industries have a river to cross in terms of understanding what the rules are going to be in this new cloud future. Moreover, the introduction of artificial intelligence onto that data. And where is that going? And what are the guide rails for that? And are there leaky holes there that could create problems from downstream? So a complicated issue for sure, but something that must be it needs to be addressed if they're going to leverage the new stuff and the new technology that's available on the cloud.
Chris, with SAP ECC, end of support for 2027, end of life for 2030. You got to answer the one question that our audiences probably have, like, how do I get started? I'm like, Chris, I got the same problem. I don't really know where to start. I don't know how to get started. I lack the skills. I lack the understanding. In fact, I'm the guy that just was tasked to do it, but I'm over my head. So
first of all, I'd say give us a call.
Did you like my segue there, Chris?
Awesome. This is our knitting. In fact, at Services for AWS, we built out a methodology which we call SHIP, or Safe Harbor Inclusive of Passage, which maps out each phase of that for a client. And in our world, it all starts with a pre-flight. So in a pre-flight, we will tease out, this is what's got to go, this is what the options are going to look like for you, this is what we would recommend for you, given price constraints or whatever direction that you're going in. And no matter who you use to do the migration, that we've set you up, that you're walking into this with your eyes open. And so, in short, you're looking to move ECC onto S4 RISE, and you're looking at embracing the cloud for sure. Phone is up at EPI-USE Services for AWS. Be happy to help.
All right, Chris, I really appreciate your time here. This has been awesome, man. It's good information for everybody looking to migrate and the concern of actually dealing with the end of life and support for SAP.
For sure. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, everybody, this has been Jon Myer from Myer Media. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and notify, because guess what? We're out of here.